We're going to start with the Draymond Green and Jordan Poole punch heard round the world. Look, this is a Draymond friendly podcast for a long time. I have been nothing more than the internet's foremost Draymond Green apologist. I have firmly been at bat, fighting the good fight, saying that Draymond Green is one of the most underrated players in NBA history. Like, I think he's absolutely phenomenal. I think that he's the most impactful defensive player in the league. Love Draymond Green unconditionally. What he did to Jordan Poole is unforgivable. For people who have been living under a rock for the last, 4 days, I think is when it got reported 4 days ago. A report started to come out of Golden State from the Athletics' Shams Charania, as many things do, that Draymond Green and Jordan Poole had an incident at practice where Draymond Green punched Jordan Poole. And, it's announced that Draymond Green, they handled it internally or whatever, and maybe there's a fine, no suspension. It seems like things are going to move forward. And then the video gets released. Was that yesterday morning, Saturday morning? I can't remember.
Friday morning, I think. I don't remember.
Friday morning?
Saturday, Friday. Yeah, a couple mornings ago.
Yeah, Friday morning, video gets released. He just absolutely cold cocked him. It looked like, from the video, they were talking back and forth a little bit. Jordan Poole says something to him. Draymond comes up to him, gets in his face. Jordan Poole shoves him away. Like, Draymond's like very much in his airspace, and I don't really have beef with Jordan Poole, just kind of shoving him away like that in the way that he did. And then Draymond Green, just clocks him, like Superman punches him, it looked like, from a distance after getting that little bit of separation. Even Draymond Green at the press conference he did yesterday kind of seems to understand that what he did here was completely just unacceptable in every capacity. There's not really a way to look. I go to bat for Draymond Green when others don't, because I'm a big fan, but this is just one of those situations where you can't do it. This is a completely unacceptable in every capacity decision, and it's going to have real fallout, I think, on both the short and long term of the Golden State Warriors. Just for reference here on the way that this all got leaked, it got leaked to TMZ. And from what our Marcus Thompson at The Athletic said, it was the first time that some people within the organization had actually physically seen the punch and what happened. Because, when you're in the middle of practice, you have different little things happen when plays stop. Like, some guys are paying attention to coaching happening over here. Some guys are paying attention to other things happening to the right. And it seemed like one of the situations when Jordan shoved him, it all happened so quick that a lot of people just didn't get eyes on it. But as Marcus said, that video getting out was the first time that some people got eyes on it. And because of that, now Draymond Green has chosen to take an indefinite leave of absence of some sort from the organization. We'll see when he's back. He said, it looks like Draymond Green in his press conference said, "I love Jordan Poole. That's my guy. Like I said to Jordan, I will still ride for Jordan. I will still advocate for Jordan. I will still do anything that I can to make Jordan's job easy, to make Jordan look good, to get him the things that he wants out of basketball that I can help from a teammate's perspective. That's that. My feeling toward Jordan does not change. It's the reason Jordan's locker is next to mine from day one. That dynamic has changed a little bit. It's on me to make that right and get it back." Okay, that's about 4 minutes of explaining the Draymond Green situation. What is your reaction when you first saw the Draymond Green punch?
So when I watched the video, it was a very much the first thought was it's a lot worse than I initially had thought. That the way that the report came out, that hearing that there's likely going to be no suspension and it's all being handled internally, it's like maybe he threw a punch, it didn't necessarily land. Maybe it was just kind of a weak thing in a scuffle back and forth. Maybe Poole is doing something to instigate so they don't want to come down too hard on Draymond. a lot of that goes out the window once you first see the actual
and just
video.
like, yeah, and like I just want to speak to that real quick, and sorry to cut you off, but like just like in terms of thinking, like a way to think about this, like Draymond Green is 6'5", 6'6", 230 pounds, let's call it 225, 230 pounds. Like he is like UFC heavyweight size. Like he is a fucking enormous human being. And when guys who are enormous decide to put all of their power and all of their weight behind a punch, it's going to cause a problem. Like that's all. I think that is as much as anything, like why the NBA is like deathly afraid of like there being fights in the league. And for instance, like NBA players going into the stands and fighting, like these dudes are fucking lethal when they decide to punch. Like it is dangerous for NBA players to punch one another. Like, again, this is essentially like a UFC heavyweight sized human being. Not to say that Draymond is like that level fighter, but like he is that size punching someone. Those dudes do damage to people. Like it seems like Jordan Poole like does not have like permanent damage, but like I think that's why this is as scary as it was probably for the organization.
No doubt about it. And look, I've been, around teams in locker rooms for a long period of time. I've seen fights. I've broken up fights. I got ejected from my last intramural game in college because I was kind of a chippy son of a bitch myself. This is by far, probably the most violently thrown punch that I've seen that's landed a pretty egregious one. There's going to be some people out there that say, it's an NBA. There's emotions flying all over the place. Stuff like this happens, not necessarily to this severity, and definitely not kind of from a guy like Draymond, who is supposed to be the heart and soul, the key, the protector. Like if you haven't read Marcus Thompson's piece over The Athletic, please do so. Thought it was absolutely fantastic the way that he framed this about the relationships and the really individuals that are involved in this, as opposed to just thinking about one teammate throwing a punch at the other. Because I think that that's always really important to understand the individuals and the dynamics at play.
Yeah. I mean, like, I want to get back to that idea of him being like the culture guy, the big brother type. But like, violent punches like in league history that I can think of off the top of my head, like Kareem, on, if I remember correctly, Kent Benson. Like that was a pretty bad one. Kent Benson got very injured from that. Kermit Washington to Rudy Tomjanovich. That was an incredibly dangerous one. Nikola Mirotic when Bobby Portis punched him, and if I remember correctly, like broke an orbital bone in a practice punch that I don't think we've seen publicly. Right. I can't remember it off the top of my head. Like, yeah, I guess you can say this stuff happens, but like most of the time when it happens, it's very damaging. Yeah. Like it is like a significant issue in terms of the other person's health. And I mean, like for Draymond Green to do it, like you brought up the idea of him being like the culture guy, like the big brother. I know that was a big thing that Marcus brought up. I mean, it's one of those things where like the culture, like you just, I don't know. I'm not in there. Like, I don't know how the culture will react to this. I mean, well, I don't know.
Yeah. And I've been thinking about this a lot the last few days from a coach's perspective, right? What would I do if this happened on my team? If a couple players got involved in an incident like this, if I were Steve Kerr, Bob Meyer, whoever higher ups in the organization, how would I try to manage this? And I think that there's going to be a lot of deep conversation, a lot of taking the pulse on how everyone else feels about Draymond, about the incident. You're going to have to rely on your other leaders to essentially come to a lot of a point, whether that's Steph and Clay, whether that's other veterans that are around, assistant coaches, people who have a good relationship with both Draymond and Poole, and kind of say, how do we move forward from this? Can we move forward from this in a constructive way for the team so that this doesn't either become a distraction or that there's legitimate ways to coexist with those two in the future? Because you can easily see a circumstance where an event like this, not just because it happened, but because it has now become such public knowledge in terms of what happened with the punch and everybody's seen the video, when it's behind closed doors, it's not necessarily that you can handle it in a certain way. It's that not everybody has an opinion on it because they don't have all of the facts. They don't have, video that's burned into their memory about it. And now that that's out, everybody is going to be asking questions about this on press conferences, on road trips. It could be something that comes up, late into the season. Somebody's probably going to have a stat in February of Draymond's assists this year. And if Jordan Poole isn't in the top 4 of that, they're going to ask Draymond, are you not passing to Jordan Poole? Is there some lingering beef between you guys? Which, in my opinion, would be a ridiculous question to kind of ask because you don't always control who you share the floor with, who you get assists to. But it's just now that it's more public knowledge, it's just another piece of weight that everyone in the organization kind of has to carry. And it's going to be a lot of work on their veterans and their leaders to decide not just how, but if they can mend the relationship and move on in a way that isn't distracting or damaging to the group.
Yeah, and look, I hope it does. I hope it gets fixed. That's kind of what it comes down to for me because I love watching the Warriors play. Jordan Poole's been an incredible infusion to the Splash Brothers, especially with the ways that they can play off of someone like a Draymond Green, running dribble handoffs, his ability to drive and kick, his short roll passing ability to kick outs to Poole. There's just so many different ways that you can get creative with all of these guys, including Draymond Green. The other part of this that's interesting is the long-term implication, right? Jordan Poole is a restricted free agent this offseason. Draymond Green has a player option for this season. What does this mean for the Warriors long-term is a real substantial question, I think, around the league right now. What do they do? Does this open up the team to potential trade options at the deadline? Does this open up the team to potentially having to make a decision on Jordan Poole versus Draymond Green, which is kind of crazy? I don't know if we're there yet. I don't know if we're going to get there. It's just absolutely mind-numbing to me that this is the way that Draymond Green chose to handle this. Look, the emotions have gotten better of Draymond Green previously. I get that, but this was not the way, unfortunately.
No.
And I'm surprised that I'm just surprised that Draymond let that happen, I guess, as a guy that has not let this happen, not let something like this happen before, I guess, even if he has lost control of his emotions a little bit.
Yeah, you love a guy because of his emotions that he plays with, because of how spirited he is as a teammate and how much he has been kind of that culture driver for a long period of time. And you think that there's always going to be some semblance of control of that emotion because everything about the way that he plays and the way that he talks is very team first.
And the way that he thinks, he's an incredibly intelligent human being.
Yep.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, it feels very team first, and having something like this come to the surface that is the antithesis of culture and keeping the group together and doing anything that's in the best interest of the group seems very un-Draymond-like, despite it matching kind of his sometimes lack of control over his emotional responses.
Yeah. We will see the way that this all works out. The first sign here for me that I'm looking to really check out is the Warriors have an impending decision on a Jordan Poole extension here, in the next week. That to me will say even more about the situation than Draymond's return to the fold, because look, first days is probably going to be a little bit raw. You just never know. The Warriors have to make a very critical long-term decision here in the next 7 days, essentially, on what is going to happen with Jordan Poole. And if he is committing to the Warriors long-term, if they are committing to him and an absolutely astronomical tax bill long-term. That's the key. That's the big question for me here. Where does this go from there?
And I'm watching a little bit more as to whether Jordan Poole would want to continue having a contract negotiation extension. Obviously, from the Warriors standpoint, they've got a lot to figure out with how much to offer and whether they want to commit to that.
Yeah.
But if I'm Poole and that there is still a chance out there that the Warriors commit to Draymond long term, that hey, we know he and Steph together has to be what we use to maximize the title window. As long as Steph is here, we probably need Draymond. If that's the case and you're Jordan Poole, why would you rush to the deadline here to get an extension done when you don't know how that's going to play out for you long term? So definitely fascinating. But for me, it's whether Poole would even want to engage in those conversations right now.
Yeah, very interesting.